My name is Brian Thompson, and if you're reading this, I need you to understand something. I'm not crazy. I never was. But what happened to me, what I experienced, has left me questioning my own sanity. It all began on a sunny Saturday morning at a garage sale. I'm a pretty average guy, living a quiet life in my small apartment with my dog, Max. I decided to check out the garage sale just for fun, hoping to find something interesting to break the monotony of my routine. Amid the clutter of old books, tarnished silverware, and forgotten trinkets, I found her, Madeline. She was an antique doll with porcelain skin, deep blue eyes, and long curly blonde hair. Her lace dress was old, yellowed with age, and the name Madeline was embroidered on it. There was something about her, something that drew me in. Without thinking much of it, I bought her and took her home. At first, she was just a doll, sitting quietly on a shelf in my living room. But then strange things started happening. It began with small, almost imperceptible disturbances. My keys would vanish and reappear in strange places. The remote control would be in a drawer I never used. I chalked it up to my absent-mindedness, laughed it off as a sign of getting older. But the incidents grew stranger. One morning, I found a kitchen knife on the coffee table. Another day, a photograph of me and Max was turned face down. I tried to rationalize it, to find logical explanations, but a sense of unease began to creep in. I felt like I was being watched, even when I was alone. I started catching glimpses of movement out of the corner of my eye, shadows that darted away as soon as I turned my head. Then came the whispers, faint and indiscernible at first, like a distant radio playing in another room. They grew louder at night, filling the silence with their haunting murmur. I couldn't make out the words, but they sent chills down my spine. My sleep became restless. I would wake up drenched in sweat, convinced that someone had been in the room with me. Each time, I found nothing but the oppressive stillness of the night. Madeline seemed to move on her own. I would leave her on the living room shelf, only to find her in the kitchen or perched on my nightstand. Her once innocent face took on a sinister quality, her eyes glinting with malice. The whispers grew louder whenever I was near the doll, an unintelligible cacophony that gnawed at my sanity. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, I came home to chaos. The apartment was in shambles, furniture overturned, books strewn across the floor, picture frames shattered. The walls were smeared with dark, dried streaks of what looked like blood. Panic surged through me as I called out for Max, but there was no response. I searched the apartment frantically, my heart pounding in my chest. I found Max in the living room, lying in a pool of blood. The sight was horrifying. Max's fur was matted with gore. Deep gashes crisscrossed his body, and his lifeless eyes stared vacantly into space. His throat had been savagely slashed, and one of his legs was almost severed. I fell to my knees, tears streaming down my face as I cradled my mutilated pet. Through my sobs, I noticed Madeline. She sat in the center of the carnage, a bloody knife clutched in her porcelain hand. Her face, once angelic, now bore a twisted, malevolent grin. Her blue eyes seemed to glitter with cruel satisfaction. Before I could react, the doll's head snapped up, her eyes locking onto mine. A chilling voice, unnaturally high-pitched and grating, filled the room. "You're next," she screeched, her voice echoing off the walls. I stumbled back, scrambling to my feet, but Madeline moved with unnatural speed. The knife gleamed in her hand as she lunged at me. Despite her small size, her strength was overwhelming. The blade cut through my flesh with terrifying precision, slicing deep into my arms, chest, and face. Blood sprayed across the room, mingling with the already gruesome scene. My screams filled the apartment, a desperate, agonized cry for help. I tried to fight back, but the doll was relentless, her tiny hands wielding the knife with sadistic glee. Each cut was more savage than the last, tearing through muscle and sinew. My vision blurred, my strength waned, and I collapsed to the floor, the life draining from my body. When the authorities arrived days later, they were met with a scene of unimaginable horror. The apartment was soaked in blood, the smell of death permeating the air. My body was a mutilated mess, barely recognizable amidst the carnage. Max lay nearby, his fur stained dark with dried blood. The doll, however, was gone. Weeks passed, and the apartment was cleaned and put back on the market. The tragic deaths of me and Max faded into the background noise of the city's endless stream of misfortunes. Life moved on, and the memory of the horrific events began to fade. Meanwhile, at another garage sale across town, an elderly woman placed a